Hi guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Gordon.
I'm Alice.
And we're roaming with the Ramsays. We're chasing our adventures.
Make time to chase your adventure.
So today we're taking you to the Maine Maritime Museum. Make sure you stick around to the end for some really neat information about that ship that we used as our thumbnail, the Mary E. The Maine Maritime Museum was a really cool place. We didn't expect as much as what we ended up with.
Right? So when we first planned to go to this museum, of course we wanted to take my dad because he's in the Navy and he likes his boats.
He's a retired Navy guy.
But we expected a couple hours. Well, we spent all day.
Had to leave, go get lunch, and then come back again. So we're going to break this kind of up into a few sections. The first section we're going to talk about is the main museum itself, the indoor section. Now indoors there's some really cool things to see. One of the things I liked seeing the most, I would say, is probably the Fresnel lens for a lighthouse that they have in there that actually comes on and goes around casting its light. If you're not familiar with the Fresnel lens, it was developed by physicist Augustus Jean Fresnel. Probably slaughtered the name, but it allows the beam to more or less be concentrated to where it will actually go out farther. So it's pretty cool to be able to see one of those in action inside the museum.
So that's how they could see up to that 14 nautical miles. So on your way to go in to see the lighthouse, you also get to pass through like a tugboat section that they're actually talking like you're on a tugboat and driving. You got the wheel.
It's like a wheelhouse, a pilot house of a tugboat with the great big ship's wheel.
It was pretty cool to kind of feel like you were actually part of the tugboat. Kids would have a ball.
A blast in there. Because there's radio transmissions that you would hear talking from a tugboat to the ship, going back and forth.
Yeah.
There's nautical charts inside there.
Yeah.
So just pretty neat little environment.
Right. That was really cool. The other thing that you get to see in the museum, there's a lot of paintings, old paintings back from the 17 and 1800s, all over the walls. I mean, they're in several different areas, all of these wonderful paintings. So if that's something that you enjoy looking at, they have a lot. They have a really nice variety of, everything from the huge wall thing, one of the oil paintings, it covered the whole wall. Right. And it was beautiful. So
one of the things I liked that they had, that a lot of, was the models. They had some really nice models of destroyers, and I think probably the coolest one was the model of the Wyoming, which was a 6-mast schooner that was built right there at that property where the museum is now. And it's just impressive, the size and the detail in that model. Yeah. Now also there's a lot of half models that you'll learn that they use those half models when they were actually building the real ships. Right. Those half models were to scale, and it's called a half model because it's half the boat from front to back, split straight down the middle. So they used that based on a scale size to know how big to make things. And those are everywhere.
Yeah. There was one room that was basically dedicated to all of the half models of all of the boats that they made there before it was a museum, of course.
Part of your ticket price is with a volunteer who knows a lot about Percy and Small, which is the shipbuilding company that occupied the property and built the Wyoming and several other ships while they were in business. Part of the tour is going to include some in-depth information about the Wyoming, about how it was put together, some of the pay structures for like the captain and some of the other crew.
And they even talk about when the Wyoming sunk.
Correct. So you're going to want to definitely do that walking tour if you go here.
If you went from the tip of her jib, which is almost over Washington Street there, to the tip of her spanker boom, the final mast of all of these large vessels called the spanker mast. And the spanker had a boom on it. If you went from there to there, she was 450 feet in length. On deck, she was 330.
So there's two different tickets that you can purchase. One is for the museum and for the walking tour, and I believe that one was $18. The second one is the walking tour, the museum, and a boat ride on the river that's right there. And that one was really cool. I highly suggest you guys go ahead and take that extra a little bit there to do that tour, because we learned a lot on that tour.
Absolutely. The coolest thing about the boat ride, in my opinion, was going by the Bath Iron Works. So when you start out on the boat, you start heading south down the river to go and look at a couple of lighthouses.
Which is my favorite part. I love the lighthouses.
The lighthouses were pretty neat. So you had one lighthouse that Alice and I had hiked to a couple days prior. And then there's another one that is a beacon. So there's two lights that are in a line that go out into the woods. And you'll see them, they kind of line up, and it just helps navigate the waterway. And then you make your way back north. Some of the things that you might see on this boat ride include bald eagles.
Which we did. We saw eagles, and we saw a seal.
And osprey.
We even talked about some of the osprey because they were just getting ready to start teaching their young to fly.
Right.
And so they were really pointing out where their nests were, why they were nesting in those areas. So they really have knowledge on everything, and it was really neat.
So after going south and seeing Alice's favorite part, you start making your way north again, which I thought was really cool because we had an opportunity to see the big sculpture of the Wyoming from the river. And when we were going up, there was a small-ish cruise ship in the water. And in comparison to the big sculpture of the Wyoming that was up on shore, it just dwarfed the cruise ship. And then once we got past that area, then you get close to Bath Iron Works. You get an opportunity to see the big dry dock that they have there, and then you get to see some of the Navy destroyers that are there.
They actually had two that hadn't even been commissioned into the Navy yet. They were still being built.
They did actually have a total of 3 Navy ships that were there. One was the USS Lyndon B. Johnson, which is a Zumwalt class destroyer, which has a very modern look to it, almost a stealthy kind of vibe. The USS Daniel Inouye and the USS Carl M. Levin. So getting an opportunity to see those sitting in the water and being worked on was really, pretty neat. Now the other thing that you notice when you're on there is you'll see a small patrol boat in the water. That small patrol boat is security for the boats and ships that are there being worked on that are sitting in the water. And you may also notice in the video buoys. Those buoys are your do not cross line.
Yep, they say keep out.
Right. So the security guys are constantly on patrol there and monitoring the water and making sure nobody attempts to damage any of the Navy vessels. I want to give a little bit of information about Bath Iron Works. Bath Iron Works was founded in 1884, and during the height of World War II, when the production was at their highest, they were able to put out a destroyer one every 17 days.
Wow.
When you really think about it, that's an amazing accomplishment given the size, length, and materials used to make these ships.
Those are some pretty big ships to be putting out that many that fast. So by now it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the nice thing is that you can actually leave and then keep your receipt, and they also will give you a sticker. Keep your stickers on, and you can re-enter. So we went and had lunch on the riverside. It was really nice to just sit there and relax and have lunch, and then we went back. And when we went back, we started to do our self-tour through all of the buildings that are on the grounds.
There's several buildings on the ground that you can go into and look at. And these are original buildings. These are not replicas. The first one that we toured was the Oakum Room. Now, if you're not familiar with Oakum, Oakum is kind of like a rope. It's made out of hemp. It's very fibrous material. And then they soak the oakum in a tar-like substance, and they use it for caulking or chinking of the boards. So they'll use tools to stuff it in between the wooden framing of the ship to help secure it and keep it watertight.
I think my favorite building that we went into was the Sawmill. They actually on the floor, they still had all of the holes in the floor from when the guys used to wear these spiked shoes type of thing, so they didn't fall or slip or anything while they were moving all of these big heavy logs and stuff. And that floor is still original from way back then, and it still has the holes in the floor. I thought that was pretty impressive.
It's pretty neat. It's like a golf shoe in a way, with iron spikes sticking out of the bottom of the shoe. And also one of the things that I thought was pretty neat was when we went into the paint and tree nail shop. Inside the paint and tree nail shop, you will see paint buckets where they mixed paint for painting the ships and things like that. But I thought one of the cool things was there was a fire back in the early 1900s, I believe it was, and you could still look in the rafters and see damage from that fire when the old blacksmith shop caught on fire. So you know you're definitely looking at old original buildings. And if you're not familiar with what a tree nail is, the best way I can describe it is it's like a big dowel. So when they stack these huge timbers on top of each other, they would bore holes. And then they need something to lock these things together. So they would use it's like a big dowel about yay so big around and yay so long. The reason this was important was, one, it locked them together, but two, using wood instead of metal meant you didn't have rust problems. And what happened with the wood is when they drove it into the holes that were bored, as they got wet, it did what wood does. It swelled and expanded and basically locked itself in place. So if you stuck around this long, we promised you early on that there'd be an update or some information about the ship that we used for our thumbnail, the Mary E.
So the Mary E was built in 1906, right here on the property where the museum now sits.
The Mary E was later refurbished and then put back into action. Alice and I may have had the last pictures of the Mary E.
Yeah, so about an hour after we had taken our photos of it and we were done for the day, we were on our way out, the Mary E took their last tour of the day at 4 p.m. and it capsized just across the river over by the lighthouses that we got to see. So of course the Bath and Iron Works security there were first on scene. The Bath Fire Department was there and the police department, you know, and all 18 people on board were fine. They were all rescued and nobody was hurt. One person went to the hospital just to make sure that everything was fine. And they're going to be assessing the damage and seeing if they're going to be able to get that ship back up and running again.